Well, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, I'm Ed DeVoe. I'm the president of the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association, the state's first and largest trade association established for the cannabis industry in New Jersey. I want to welcome you to another segment of Lunch and Learn. We have two great speakers today, two great subjects. But before that, let's do just a little housekeeping. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are Argus 365, a security company, Burton, Trent Public Affairs, Curaleaf, current ATC and board member, Financial Resources, Federal Credit Union. Dora, thank you for coming today. I'd also like to thank Puffin, Entrepreneurs and Investors, Saks, LLP, the Sheet Metal Workers, Local 19, Sprague Energy, a partner, and we'll be meeting them in the near future. Syska Hennessy Group, an engineering outfit, the UFCW, Locals 360 and 152, thank you, Hugh Giordano, and Weeds Direct. I also want to thank everyone who could make our last networking function in New Brunswick. Had a great time. I want to thank Blackthorn, thanks to our treasurer, Felice Twaddle, who helped put everything together. And stay tuned, Wednesday, June 15th, we're going to be in Asbury Park. So that's Wednesday, June 15th in Asbury Park at Johnny Mac's House of Spirits. So we look forward to seeing everyone at Johnny Mac's on Main Street in Asbury Park on Wednesday, June 15th. So let's get started with today's event. We'll open with someone that I've known for a long time and have come to admire and respect in his public life as well as his private life. And someone that I can't help but be grateful for our paths crossing over the years. Lou Magazzu, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'll turn it over to you. And then at some point, I will introduce Domenic Gallelli of Ingage. Thanks so much, Lou.
Ed, thank you very much. I am speaking from the MJ Unpacked event in New York City, which brings license holders or prospective license holders with investors. And it's really been fabulous. And I've had the opportunity to bring a number of clients up here over the last couple of days. On June 14th, the day before your event, I'm actually going to be a keynote speaker in Atlantic City at an event called CannaTech. And I basically have taken that long keynote and abbreviated into about a 5 or 10 minute presentation. And my presentation is what I call the local approval process, from initial meetings to receipt of a certificate of occupancy. This is really a truncated version of when I meet with clients the very first time. And I know we have some sophisticated folks on, and I apologize if this is perhaps redundant to you, but this is the very first meeting where I give them a touch of what they can expect and what our goals are. This is really driven for a conditional or an annual license, whether it's in cultivation or manufacturing, because we have those rules. And although it wouldn't necessarily apply to micro, it wouldn't be required, I believe many of the proposals and suggestions that the annuals and conditionals go for are wise to follow. By the way, it's been quiet in this space until just when I began, so I hope there's not too much ambient noise. Just a quick little bit of background. I am going to be 65 in September, practiced law for 40 years. To Ed's point, I was a county freeholder, now they call it commissioners, for 15 years. I've been a municipal attorney for about 10, and for about 15, 20 years now, I've done development work, over 3 billion of transactions, including 4 cannabis licenses. So when people come in, I say, all right, this is what you need to do first from a local approval process. We need to make sure that you have the proper residency, because as you know, there's impact communities and there's social equity folks. I explain all of that. You have to make sure that it's zoned correctly. We have to meet with city officials. And then I also talk to them about what's called the Union Peace Agreement. I also talk to them about academic connections, state agencies they may have to deal with, finalizing property, and something I represented Columbia Care in a prior cycle. And one of the things that was required in the old health legislation and regulations was an advisory board. Even though it's no longer required, I think it's really kind of an interesting point, having an advisory board, because you get buy-in from the community. there's such a bias sometimes against cannabis, to the extent you can get community leaders to be on they don't have decision-making power. They're not a board of directors, but an advisory board. And I'll go into each of these with some detail. First is residency. As we know, the legislation and the regulations were correctly developed so as to give a benefit to New Jersey residents. In fact, under certain circumstances, it's required to have a 51% ownership under certain categories of individuals. So the first thing we want to make sure is that they're a resident of the state of New Jersey. And the other thing we want to find out is, are they part of the communities that are given extra points? Is it a women or minority-owned business anticipated? Is it a veteran? Is it somebody with disabilities? Is it somebody that has 2 prior disorderlies with marijuana or cannabis or a felony? They're the kinds of questions we ask to kind of qualify the individual. And then, is it zoned correctly? You don't want to be in a situation where you're looking at property that is not zoned correctly. You don't want to wind up chasing your tail. Now, perhaps, and I had this situation with Columbia Care 4 years ago, they had to create a zone because it had never been anticipated. As cannabis becomes more and more part of the realm, so to speak, there are going to be communities that will, in fact, have what's called zones for cannabis, whether it's for retail or cultivation or manufacturing or distribution or labs. So you're going to want to do a zoning analysis on behalf of the folks. Very important. This is my dear friend, Mayor Finucci. I think one of the finest mayors in the state. You want to meet with the mayor very early, and you want to ask the mayor, I'm realizing it's the same tie. I do have more than one tie. But anyway, you have to ask the mayor, how do you feel about this? I totally believe that you don't try to push a rock up a hill. If the mayor is against it, if the city council is against it, if they're totally against it, I think you discard it. If they're open-minded and there's an opportunity to educate them, and you'll get that with that meeting. This really speaks to the first point, the first slide of the residency. You really want to have someone who's really local to the community to be a part of this, or a group that's part of it. And the legislation and regulations clearly speak to that. And part of the reason that I think we had success in the application process is we treated the regulations as an open book test. I loved when I was in high school and I had the open book test. Well, that's what the regulations do, because the CRC was nice enough to literally tell us what the points are going to be and the point allocation. And certainly local involvement is very important. Other things that we have to talk to very early with the client, and you want to try to discard anything that's going to be a disqualifier. Finalize the paperwork. Is it going to be a purchase? Is it going to be a lease? Make sure that you have property control. And then also, again, you're going to say to the mayor and city council, I need a letter of support or resolution support. You also need a zoning officer letter to show that it's properly zoned. These are boxes that need to be checked off that sound simple, but the failure to have any of them would be fatal to an application. And some of my great friends here, including Ed and Hugh Giordano, Charlie Walkanek, Sam from the UFCW, you need that union peace agreement. Now, you don't need it with the micros, but you do, but you need it for your annuals, okay? And even when the conditionals get converted to annuals. But I say it's smart business to work with the unions, because you're going to get the best people who are going to be well-trained, who are going to be responsible, who are going to be accountable. So I tell my clients, and by the way, in cannabis or outside of cannabis, because I do a lot of development work, you're getting, there's a sense you pay more, you do pay more, but you get more. And at the end of the day, it gives you a better project. So that is something else that you need to do. Academic connections. Colleges such as Rowan University and Stockton and Rowan College are now creating cannabis academic programs. This is becoming part of the educational criteria. You want to talk to those colleges and talk for your hiring, as well as your county offices of job training. Very important. And there's also a preference, again, to look for folks from disadvantaged communities. And there are, through the offices of job training, through the college, through the technical school, there are opportunities to get actual credits when you assist those folks. State agencies, alphabet soup, very important. First, our friends at CRC, because they are the ones who are going to evaluate the application. But you want to look at other things. Department of Environmental Protection. In some instances, manufacturing and cultivation facilities are being put in old industrial parks. Are there any environmental issues you have to worry about? If you're in southern Jersey, particularly southeast Jersey, are there pinelands issues? Are there DOT issues? Do you have to, if you're a retail space, do you have to worry about a cutout? Those are the kinds of things you want to do early and make sure that there's nothing that disqualifies you. I say I have a checklist, and we do it very early, not to see whether we have the job done, but is there anything that's going to disqualify us? Because you don't want to get so far down the road and be disqualified, and that helps. Finalize property details. Now, this is a meeting actually we had about a year ago. This gentleman back here, Ren, literally got a license in Pleasantville for cultivation. We worked on it for a year. That was our first meeting. I put it in to symbolize this is your property closing. This is making sure that you can control the property. This would be after you get a license, but you want to have everything finalized so that once you get that license, you can start the lease, you can buy the property, and you do that through a letter of intent or a memo of understanding. Your lawyer will know how to do that. I really put the beginning and the end here because this is the first thing you would do before you have a building is obtain a building permit so that you could do the renovations or construction. This is Columbia Care, who I represented. They've changed their name recently, but that was one of the projects we did in Vineland. And then when you're done, it's a certificate of occupancy. Now, if I didn't have just 10 minutes, this would have been the first thing and the other one would have been the last, but I put them together because that results in a building. Your building permit, your certificate of occupancy. Another reason why you want to talk to your mayor early, your city council people early, to make sure they're on board. Finally, something that was required, and this was taken yesterday at MJ Unpacked with all of my clients, and I'm very proud. You can see they represent the folks that the legislation was written for, that the regulations. That group represents 3 different groups that has 2, 4, 5 licenses in the last round. Okay, fabulous people. I put them symbolically to say that I would recommend, again, a community advisory board. This is a way to really say I'm really proud of my clients, and we had a great day yesterday. And then we're done. And I did this without the assistance of my sons. Well, he actually prepared it, he and my daughter-in-law, but I was actually able to advance it today and not mess it up. Thank you for the opportunity. When Dominic's done, I'm certainly available to answer any questions. And I really do appreciate this opportunity. And you were very kind in your introduction. It has been an honor to be your friend. I am significantly older than you, so I have watched you progress from a very young man to not quite as young man, but certainly very accomplished. You have had an amazing career with much more to come. But I remember when you were very young, but we were both younger and thinner, but you looked fabulous in your success. And I'll open up for questions when we're done with Domenic. Thank you.
Oh, Lou, thank you so much. That was a great, however abbreviated presentation. And what it does do is it lends to our discussion with Domenic. So Domenic Gallelli of Ingage. And Ingage, I am proud to say, is a relatively new member to the CannaBusiness Association. But Domenic, you guys jumped right in. You were so enthusiastic. I know you're going to share some information about just how engaged you've become in such a short amount of time. But again, so glad to have you as a member. So I'll turn it over to you, where you can maybe even highlight some more of what Lou talked about with respect to things, and please don't hold back, the things that Ingage actually does. So thank you.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you so much for having me. Lou, you're going to make it hard to follow up. Thanks a lot. I should have gone first. Well, everyone, I hope you're all enjoying your virtual sandwiches. I was going to bring virtual cannoli, but you don't have to worry about that now. So one of the things I was going to talk about with Ingage, and Ingage is a certified minority business that specializes in security guard services, armed and unarmed, throughout the tri-state area. And that becomes rather germane to this whole conversation when you talk about personnel. So I'm also a certified protection specialist through ASIS International. And in that, the model that has really been purported and pushed forward is what we're calling the convergence model. And the convergence model, especially with guarding the green, as it were, combines four essential tentacles, if you will. One, you have physical security. Two, technology. Three, personnel. And four, cyber. All of these together converge, for lack of a better word, so that you have almost like prisons are designed, the concentric circle. They're designed to keep things out. In this case, they're also helping to keep things in. So to get started, one of the things I want to show everybody, well, let me backtrack. I just submitted an editorial, I think it's going to go out in the newsletter, about tips for employment screening. And building off of one of the points that Lou mentioned, disadvantaged areas, which again, I'm all for. One of the things you might want to keep an eye on is sometimes the motivation for someone from a disadvantaged area, unfortunately, might not be as altruistic as you might think. So I do very much encourage a robust screening process to make sure that you get the best people possible for you and your clients, because image does matter. And all of those things I touch on in the editorial, so I won't glance over them here. One of the things I'm going to talk about now is I'm going to show everybody visually some case studies of what happens when you do and don't do the convergence model properly. And that goes everywhere from design to cameras and lights to personnel, surveillance, and taking things too lightly, not giving things their due. So I'm going to do a quick screen share. And there we go. And we're going to leapfrog a little bit. Okay, now this genius right here tried to ride up on his bicycle. And it occurred at a cultivation property, several acres, no lighting, no surveillance, nothing. The guy had a couple of hand tools in his basket, like Toto and Dorothy, and he was able to breach the fence and other restricted areas. There was no deterrence of any kind here, none. He just rode on up, zing his bike, and off you go. Now we have these two members of Mensa show up here, and they breach the gate. Again, zero deterrence, zero anything in terms of making them think they were surveilled or that there was any sort of countermeasure of any kind. As you can see here, there were multiple people in an SUV. They breached and surrounded the building and carried automatic weapons. So this is, again, a facility that was very poorly lit, was very remote, and mistakenly thought that because they're remote and not brightly lit, no one would know they were there. Everyone's gonna know you're there. It's cannabis. Everyone's gonna know you're there. You don't have the luxury of hiding behind that, unfortunately. Okay, now here, this is what happens when you have a strong security professional on the premises. Now, I'll spare you the boredom of reading it to you, but you can see what happened here. People tried to get near a large facility, cultivation, manufacturing, everything. A credentialed armed security operator responded, and he was able to deter them, and they ran. Now, they fired 3 rounds. They missed him wildly before fleeing the property. As you can see, one of the rounds there. Now, one of the fundamental differences here is a security professional is well-trained, credentialed through the state. For example, in New Jersey, it's called SORA, Security Officer Registration Act. This is 40 hours of classroom, 40 hours of practicum, extensive background checks, psychological screening, references. This is someone that the state police authorize to operate as a private sector citizen with the ability to use lethal force if necessary. These other guys just bought ghost guns off the street. If you guys aren't familiar with that, it basically means illegal weapons that are impossible to trace, fired 3 shots, gangster style, and ran away. But this guy was able to deter that. Now, here we go. This is what happened when someone in a very densely populated area. Now you have the opposite side. Well, we're in the middle of the city. There's police going by everywhere. They don't care. There are people walking by. People mind their own business. Nobody cares. So the business unit was smart. They decided to upgrade the walls, fencing, after someone was able to get through with just basic wire cutters and scale the fence. Now, this person came back. The business unit decided to be proactive and really reinforce things. This person tried to come back, but then realized, I better pick another target. So this is where a bit of reactionary work did help. Okay, here we go. This is where I've been advising several companies that are building and doing construction for facilities in this space to not bypass or forget construction requirements, and specifically certain recommendations. For example, secured vestibules with reinforced double pane glass so that people are buzzed in, buzzed out for access control. If someone is coming in, you don't like a good feeling about them, you have every right to stop and make sure they're vetted, they have their card, their identification is screened, or you don't let them in. One of the other things we tell them is when you're building exterior walls, they have to be reinforced. They have to be reinforced to the point where someone cannot just get in. And when you're building a safe for someone, tell them not to put the office against the back wall, because any movie in Ocean's 11 will show you they can get in that way. So what you see here is a series of reinforcements, metal around the blue door, along with extra weight. Well, that works great. But then what these other guys tried to do is go through the wall. And you can see they made some pretty good progress before they got caught and turned away. Okay, now this one, I'm gonna blow it up a little bit. Again, very densely populated urban area, Southern California. An SUV was used to breach the perimeter, which you can see here. And then you had a series of bollards, which, if you guys know, they're the barriers, but they used temporary bollards, mobile. The problem is these guys put them so far apart that an SUV was able to drive right through them. It kind of defeats the purpose. These things should be narrow apart. It's barely 3 feet apart. This thing was wide enough where an SUV went through unimpeded. So whoever put them there should go back to school. Now you can see in the middle, this is one small section of the cadre of people. You had between 15 and 20 people coming in with firearms, breaching tools. They attempted to get in. Now the big thing here is security personnel, emboldened by having the ability to light up video, audio measures, loud sirens, full deterrence model, were able to get these guys away. They confronted them. Now, here we go. You can take a closer look. This is where the SUV backs in right here. You can see this is a residential area, street light. But as you can also see, the interior space here, the facility made sure they had ample lighting, bright halogen lights that are, some people would argue for motion sensor. I believe they should be on at all times, because sometimes with a motion sensor, there may be as much as a 1 second gap. You don't want to run that risk, especially when, as I'm sure Lou can speak to it, you're going to jump through every hoop in the world, and most of them are probably going to be on fire to get a license. And if you don't do everything within reasonable measure to make sure you're protecting that license, I'm going to go on a limb here and say, you're not going to keep it for long. And a license is not a God-given right. It is a privilege. It can be taken away. Lou's nodding his head, yes. So now you can see, again, these guys come in, illegal weapons. They were deterred. They did not breach the facility, at least the central facility. Security personnel were there. And with the combine of strong physical security and the building's design itself, they got away with nothing. Again, very densely populated area. We're in the home stretch here. This vehicle was caught on surveillance casing the place, round after round after round. Here you see the armed security professional out front. He, again, being a trained, credentialed officer, sees that this guy is pulling a weapon. They displayed a firearm. They brandished a weapon. They opened the window. They pointed it toward the street. There were people everywhere. The security professional showed that he was there. This happened. They went away, but you can see that they had no regard. Anyone in their way, they waved the weapon. This kind of zooms in a little bit more. Now, the operator also was wearing a body cam, which can sometimes be incredibly effective. Now, when they found the vehicle and the police located them and apprehended them, they found that there were shotguns and shells and whatnot there. These guys were ready. They were preparing. This wasn't a fly-by-night thing. This happened. All right. So there are other things I can go into and offline No, the answer is they did not happen in New Jersey, Ken. Good question. These all happened in California and out west. I'm not at liberty to say when and where. Oakland, that was one of them. And one of the things they found was that these were not isolated incidents. Some of these larger ones, the ones where it's 15 and 20, this was a well-planned, choreographed action. So the biggest threat to your industry is employee theft. And it's not just internal theft, okay? Employee theft, Department of Commerce pre-COVID reported that 30% of all businesses will fail due to employee theft. Not poor fiduciary management, not poor management, not supply chain problems, employee theft. This is something that transcends all industries, okay? I'll give you an example. Food service, 4% of every dollar is lost to employee theft. Construction sites, billions every year. Big part of that, because we do a lot of construction site work, subcontractors. Why? Well, because they know where all the good stuff is because they were there. If a guy who does HVAC is coming in when all the control panels and everything are there, he shouldn't be there. Retail, which really does spell a lot into the dispensary side, 15 times more likely to be employee theft. Now, obviously, product is designed to be secure. You know, it's not just sitting open like when you go into a store at the mall and they have like the clearance racks near the door. So these numbers do skew, but unfortunately they skew to the negative, because one of the things that is happening is people that are looking to case these places are finding a way to get someone hired who has a clean record, looks good. That person becomes their inside man. And if that person is not supervised properly, if they haven't been vetted properly, that person can help with exterior access. So something that we are asked very, very often is, well, why do these people do this? Well, why does anybody do anything? The biggest thing is access to product and no fear of consequence. Why? How many of you have heard, oh, because we're a family here. We're one big family. No, you're not. You're not a family. You're a team. I use the Uncle Vito example. Everyone's got an Uncle Vito. I'm Italian, so he's Vito. Been married 4 times. Can't hold a job. Gets drunk at family weddings. Makes a complete butthead of himself. But you have to invite Uncle Vito to everything. ... Because he's family. You're stuck. You have no way around it. You have no moral qualms with employees. Unfortunately, employees are there to do a job. And as much as you may like them, we've got some in Ingage that have been here for years. I would hate to see one of them leave, but unfortunately, the next person would step up. We don't have that luxury. So why does it happen? Well, there's a sense of entitlement. They've got theirs, why can't I have got mine? Now, Lou can speak to the hundreds of thousands of dollars that it would take to get a license. Some of you are multiple chains in the supply chain. You could have 7 figures invested. Well, that's your skin in the game. Someone who has no skin in the game, they're not going to care. They're just not. Who would? So they see opportunity. And just like anything, we can rationalize behavior. The biggest thing also, I'm not going to get caught. They consider me part of the family. So some of the most frequently stolen items in any industry are scrap, finished products, more than anything, time. Obviously that transcends things, but in terms of this sector, there are stories of cultivators and whatnot who did not want to do employee checks when they left. The security provider wanted to, said, we don't have to be super invasive, but we should take a look at what's going on here. One woman said, no, I trust my employees. Well, after 3 months of an increasing disparity between inventory and numbers and everything, she gave the security people green light. And what these guys were doing is they were sneaking buds and different things inside their gloves. And they were walking out. And when she realized how much was there, that state's regulatory commission, I can't say who it was, wanted to talk to her. Because part of, again, what Lou would speak to is, your control mechanisms and your inventory control, these things are going to be under scrutiny. And if you come back and show that you can't control it, you're going to have a problem. The employee already left. So one of the other things, again, to really kind of reinforce here, when we talk about the complete presence, okay, you're talking about the physical stuff, top of the line camera system and surveillance. You're talking about the technology. A lot of states require 30 days of recorded footage off-site. You need a redundant site, lighting, and you need the convergence model with personnel and cyber, because the second biggest threat is ransomware. Some of the companies we deal with in that sector will tell you it is inevitable. Now, I think the biggest thing people come back with is, do you think this is the most critical aspect? No. I think everything is critical. If Lou, for example, can't get you to your license, this is all moot. But what about your compliance? Is your insurance in place? Are you financially sound? I do believe in terms of the big people's table, the grown-up table, security and a comprehensive plan is essential. I don't believe any one of them can exist without the other. And I know that with the CRC and the PA, for example, they want to know you have a comprehensive security plan. They want to see it. So I think that's pretty much all I'm going to go over for now. I just wanted to kind of highlight some of those things for everyone. And my contact information is available. I look forward to being a resource for all of you. And again, thank you, Edmund and Carla, for including me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Domenic. So Lou, coming back to you and talking about the application process and guidance that you do provide those potential applicants. Domenic shared a lot of great information with respect to the security plan. New Jersey has been very fortunate in that we have not had these alleged breaches or attempted breaches. And I do think that's because New Jersey has been extremely strict, even going back to our medical licensing rounds with respect to what the site plan is. So please do, Lou, from that application standpoint, what is it? How important is all of that information?
Domenic was right on point, and frankly, the applications require a security plan to be outlined, required to have the credentials. And again, I'm talking about a conditional or an annual for cultivation, manufacturing, retail also. As one of my clients said to me, what you have in those buildings is gold, is money, okay? It's like a bank, and you have to treat it the same way. To your point, when I did Columbia Care in Vineland, we had two locations. We had a cultivation and we had a retail. As you know, health was able to be vertically integrated. We had to have fencing, had to have security, had to have lighting, had to have the cameras, had to have the tapes, everything Domenic spoke. It's like he went through that checklist. And by the way, because I was focusing on one area, I didn't talk about security. That would be an essential element, as with insurance, as with banking. I also didn't talk about standard operating procedures, SOPs. Very, very important. That could be an entire conversation, and that's brought by the operator typically, okay? The SOPs have a security interface. So Domenic was right on point in every possible way, and that would be critical on this situation.
Great. So with that, I think both of you have provided a great deal of information today, and extremely helpful to those that are considering being applicants. Some of our guests may actually have applications in. I think from the perspective of the CannaBusiness Association and being about the business of cannabis, please do. I'm encouraging everyone here and who will eventually watch this, take this very seriously. This really is about business and how you protect your business as well as your individuals on your site. So this is great, and I really do appreciate it. So Domenic, if you would, any closing points, anything that you want to again highlight, and then Lou, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you. Again, Lou, thanks for validating my points there. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I knew you and I were kind of pretty much on the same language. Again, keep in mind, you're talking about business. Well, what's the big thing? It's business continuity. You know, you're looking at the business of. I used to be in the health club business. I didn't give a damn about the gyms. I loved the business of building a company, but it's the back end stuff. And the thing is, with business continuity, the convergence model, the compliance, which is a critical part of it. If people are getting into this, if companies are doing this, investing this much capital, you want this to transcend one generation. You're trying to build something that's going to grow and evolve. Taking the time to do things properly in the beginning, or retroactively go back and say, I need to do a better job here. You know, you can always skirt something, but you can't go back and fix something remedially if it's too late. So I encourage everyone to make sure they do their homework, you know, find resources that you know are solid, and ultimately trust your gut. You know, is someone trying to sell you something, or is someone trying to say, this is how I would do it if I were you? That's it. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm available to anybody if they need anything moving forward. But thanks again.
Thank you.
And I would say first to Domenic, speaking the same language, it's either Siciliano, Napolitano, Calabrese. I'm not sure which, but it's one of those three. So
Calabrese.
Okay, I guess. Okay, so let me just, a couple of points. Domenic made, I noted on the comments, worst case have been mostly West Coast. That's because cannabis started on the West Coast. As we now become a very significant part of the economy, there's going to be more crime, greater need of security. Now, Ken Wolski said, but you've got pharmacies with more dangerous drugs. They don't require it. Is it appropriate? The rules are the rules, and whether they're fair or not, they've been made, they've been decided. And as a result, for a successful application, you have to follow the rules, which includes security, includes the SOPs, includes, I saw banking folks, I saw insurance folks. They're all the boxes that need to be checked. What's really fascinating here, and I'll close with this, and as Domenic said, I would be available to anybody who would want to consult, and as Ed knows, I talk to lots of folks for free every week on this subject. But the industry is about to become turbocharged. Okay, we're going to go from infancy of a few whatever it was, a dozen or more health medical that have turned into cultivation. We're going to have hundreds within the next 2 years of businesses. These things are important. And not only do you want to do it right for yourself, in many instances, in 5 years or so, there'll be an opportunity to sell these businesses. As part of the due diligence, they're going to ask about the same checklist that we go over now. So it's better to do it right at first. Don't think, well, maybe I could skirt it, get the license, and I'll deal with it. First of all, I doubt that you would get the license, but if you did, it's going to come back to haunt you, either operationally or at the end of the day when you want to sell it. It only makes sense to do things the right way. This is a tremendous opportunity. To Domenic's earlier point, it's a legacy opportunity for families and for folks who never would have gotten that opportunity other than maybe winning a lottery ticket. But I tell people it's not a real lottery ticket, it's a scratch-off ticket. And you scratch it off and then see what you can do with it, because, and you have to do things right. Ed, thank you for the opportunity. I certainly appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So before we close, I want to thank once again our sponsors, Argus 365, Burton Trent Public Affairs, Curaleaf, Financial Resources Federal Credit Union, Puffin Entrepreneurs and Investors, Saks LLP, the Sheet Metal Workers, Local 19, Sprague Energy, one of our new partners, Syska Hennessy Group, the UFCW, Locals 360 and 152, and Weeds Direct. Also, don't forget, June 15th, Wednesday, June 15th, Johnny Max in Asbury Park on Main Street will be getting together for another networking session. That's from 6 to 8 p.m. on Wednesday, June 15th. Please do visit the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association website, www.newjerseycannabusiness.com. Also very proud, if you've seen on LinkedIn or in some of our other announcements, we have relaunched our job board. So we've got a great partnership with Careers in Cannabis, working with Flower Hire. So please do check out our website, check out our new Careers in Cannabis link. Looking forward to being more about the business of cannabis in New Jersey. So everyone, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Again, I want to thank Lou Magazzu and Domenic Gallelli. Thank you both so much for an intriguing afternoon full of great information. Look forward to working with you both going forward.